The Gospel of our Lord from the 15th chapter of John. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has a greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything I have known from the Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. The Gospel of our Lord. Please be seated. I cook for the high school kids at least once a month, sometimes more than once. And I have more crock pots than I should probably admit to, and I can do a lot with a chicken breast in a crock pot. A lot of times we go out to eat too. It's fun to think about how many meals you guys have shared together as a community of church friends. When we sit down to eat, I make them all stack up their phones on the table, because when we go eat, we have a rule that we talk to each other instead of texting to each other. The first person to grab their phone has to then pay the entire bill. And with a group our size, that would be quite the bill. Several times, or as you can imagine, when I say this, the eyes roll, heavy sighs. I know, you tell us this every time. Often when I say that, I get that moment of realization that, oh my gosh, I have turned into my mother, saying the same thing over and over. I must admit that over the years, I've caught myself many times hearing my parents' voice come through my mouth. And I am guilty, as I suspect many of us in this room are, of being a broken record, repeating the same thing over and over to those we love. Well, friends, we are in really good company because Jesus is a broken record too. Today's text is one of his broken records that we have heard time and time again. Like the words of wisdom from our parents or grandparents or others that nurture us, we need to listen carefully to these words of wisdom from Jesus. Our gospel begins with the words we all want to hear, I love you. The words that bring a smile to our lips and to our heart. But Jesus does not stop there with a simple I love you. He says, abide in my love. So what does it mean to abide in Jesus' love? Eugene Peterson in The Message says it beautifully. He says, make yourself at home in my love. It's personal. It's ours. It's like wrapping ourselves in that blanket and curling up on the couch. But that love has made its home in us. So when we get up off that couch and we've put that blanket away, it's still with us. God's love is not contained to our home or to this building. It is ours, and it goes with us wherever we go. Today's gospel also challenges us to rethink our relationship with Christ, because he makes it clear to us that he wants to be our friend and not our master. Jesus has called us friends because he's taught us. He has taught us what his Father taught him. When we know what Jesus knows, and when we know that we're friends and not servants, we can rethink our entire relationship with Christ, which in turn will affect our relationship with everyone else. Jesus commands us to love one another. This is not new. This is the broken record piece. However, we need to hear it over and over again, just like those disciples 2,000 years ago, because we live in a world that is often not just loveless, but is too often filled with hate. In the midst of a world that struggles to love, we know that Jesus never struggles to love us. And Jesus doesn't just suggest that we love others, he commands it, to love others as he has loved us. Think about it for just a minute. What would it look like if we all loved like Jesus did? What if we could see and hear and feel the beat of that broken record in all we did? Jesus tells us that there is no greater love than to lay down one's life for our friends. That's what he did for us. He laid down his life for us on the cross, and so now we can lay down our life for others. Probably parents are the ones that understand this the most literally, to give everything they have and lay down their life for their child. But Jesus says that we are to lay down our lives for our friends. Most of us will probably not have to do that literally unless we're a soldier or a firefighter or a police officer, like some of those in the front pew will be. But I think there's other ways that we can lay down our life. We lay down our life for just a moment when we comfort that friend who is hurting. We lay down our life for a moment when we stand with those who are persecuted or afraid. We lay down our life when we put somebody else's needs before our own. And sometimes we have to lay down our pride. Sometimes we have to lay down commitments. And sometimes we have to lay down our own agenda for a greater agenda. Okay, now here's my favorite part. Verse 16, where Jesus says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you. I chose you, Erica. I chose you, Emma. I chose you, Dion. I chose you, Britt. I chose you, Ellen. I chose you, Brad. I chose you, Logan. I chose you, Michael. I chose you, Sarah. I chose you, Jared. And I chose you, Josh. I chose you, Trevor. I chose you, Eric. And I chose you, Lindsay." God chose us to be his children, knowing that we would not be perfect children. He chose you and he chose me, knowing that sometimes we would lie. He chose us knowing that sometimes we would hurt the people who love us the most. He chose us knowing that some days we would be the saint, but on many days we would be the sinner. God chose you in your entirety for the good, the bad, and the ugly. He chose you. He continues in that verse to say that I appoint you to go bear fruit, fruit that will last. Jesus has commanded us, his friends, to love one another. He showed us throughout the Gospels what that looked like, all the stories you've learned year after year. We know what that looks like. And so now it's our turn to bear fruit by listening to that broken record message and to be that broken record for those around us as we share God's love. This community of believers has been responsible for being a broken record. You have time and time again told our kids that you loved them, showed them that you loved them. Some of you may never have spoken to one of our kids, but they've seen you. They've seen the way you treat each other. They've seen you doing all the ministries around Calvary, and they see that this is important to you. We have raised them and gotten them ready to bear fruit. And so today we send them off. We're going to pause, and I'm going to invite the seniors to stand, and I'm going to introduce to you our fruit bearers.